This is Matthew Cratter from Trader University, and today I want to talk about how the SEC is coming for crypto. Not coming for Bitcoin, as we're going to see, but coming for crypto. For those of you outside the US who don't know what the SEC is, it just stands for Securities and Exchange Commission, and it's just the agency that's in charge of regulating securities, which includes stocks in the US. And as we've been reading, as we're going to talk about, the head of the SEC, a guy named Gensler, says that most cryptocurrencies are operating illegally. He's been saying this for some time, but his most recent speech from September 8th of 2022 is an extremely important speech, as we're going to see, and it might give us some visibility into what regulation, what sort of attacks and lawsuits are coming as well from the SEC. So we're going to go over some of the things that Gary Gensler said in this speech. But before we do that, we have to talk about something called the Howey test. And the Howey test in the US is a way of identifying whether something falls under the jurisdiction of the SEC, whether it's a security, whether it is a stock. The Howey test goes like this. Is it an investment of money in a common enterprise with a reasonable expectation of profits to be derived from the efforts of others? Sounds a lot like Ethereum, actually. Sounds a lot like Cardano. Sounds a lot like XRP, Ripple, which is already being sued by the SEC. This is one of those tests that you actually want to fail. If you pass the Howey test, that means you're a security and you come under the jurisdiction of the SEC. If you fail the Howey test, you are not a security and you're something more like a commodity, as we will see with Bitcoin. So here's some very important quotes from this latest speech by Gary Gensler. So this is Gensler speaking. Of the nearly 10,000 tokens in the crypto market, and I think he's wrong, I think they're like 20,000. Of the nearly 10,000 tokens in the crypto market, I believe the vast majority are securities. Offers and sales of these thousands of crypto security tokens are covered under the securities laws. That means you can't just issue a token, you can't just issue a crypto without registering with the SEC. Here's Gensler going on. Some tokens may not meet the definition of a security, what I'll call crypto non-security tokens. And according to Gensler, this is definitely where Bitcoin falls. He goes on to say these likely represent only a small number of tokens. So maybe it's Bitcoin, Monero, something like this. So they represent only a small number of tokens, even though they may represent a significant portion of the crypto market's aggregate value. In other words, they have a very large market cap, as Bitcoin itself does. Later on in the speech, he refers to Bitcoin, the first crypto token, and points out that it's referred to by some as digital gold, trading like a precious metal, a speculative, scarce, yet digital store of value. We can see that Gensler really understands this space quite well, and he understands the difference between Bitcoin and crypto, ironically much better than many people in the space. Now, of course, a lot of people in the space don't want to understand this because they want to continue to peddle their unregistered, illegal securities. If you're enjoying this video so far, I just ask you to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, share this with a few friends as well. So Gary Gensler has been talking and saying that Bitcoin alone is a commodity, and this speech would seem to suggest there might be some other tokens, perhaps a very small number, that are also commodities. As we're going to see, it is not going to be Ethereum. So good to continue to follow Gensler here. This is Gensler speaking. Investors are following crypto projects on social media and scouring online posts about them. These tokens have promotional websites featuring profiles of the entrepreneurs working on the projects. And then here's a direct dig at Ethereum, I believe. It's not about whether you set up a legal entity as a nonprofit and funded it with tokens. This would apply as well to Cardano, I imagine. It's not whether you rely on open source software or can use a token within some smart contract, probably a reference to Ethereum and or Cardano as well. These are not laundromat tokens. Promoters are marketing and the investing public is buying most of these tokens, touting or anticipating profits based on the efforts of others. And this is why we spoke about the Howey test at the beginning of this video. You can see the language there. He's using the Howey test to identify these as securities. And there's a great point in the speech where he says to all the lawyers present there and everyone else present there, not liking the message isn't the same thing as not receiving it, because people keep asking Gensler for clarification and more guidance, and he's basically already said almost everything's a token except for Bitcoin. There was another great point in the speech where he goes on and says, I have a question for the lawyers in this audience. Do you represent any clients regarding their token projects? And some people who were there said that a few lawyers raised their hands at this point. And then Gensler went on to ask, how exactly were you hired? Did you enter into an engagement letter? I'm going to guess that you had a client. I'm going to guess that you did not take on the work on behalf of a dispersed, unidentified group of individuals in a quote-unquote ecosystem. So this is one way you know your security, if you have lawyers and you've hired them. Bitcoin does not hire any lawyers. So I wanted to help out Gary Gensler here. I know that he wants to roll back the protections that have been afforded Ethereum. And I think a good way of doing this, especially in the context of talking about if a project has hired a legal team, it's probably not that decentralized, and it probably is a security as well, because you have this common enterprise working for profits that other people invest in. So here's a tip for Chairman Gensler. I found a recording here on YouTube of Vitalik in 2014 talking about how part of their fundraising for Ethereum was going towards a legal defense fund in order to defend the project. You can listen to it right here. Vitalik talking about the Ether presale and how they set aside $1 million for legal defense. This is clearly a centralized project. This is not a commodity at all. And I think this is one way that Gensler could go after Ethereum. We know from Jake Chervinsky, who's a crypto lawyer who's very active on Twitter, that there is, for context, this is Chervinsky's quote, for context, there have been rumors for a while that Chair Gensler's SEC would love to walk away from its June 2018 guidance, saying that ETH isn't a security, but they haven't found a credible way to do that yet. In parentheses, Jake says there isn't one. That's not true at all. It's very, very easy to show that ETH is a security, and you can say that basically the agency made a mistake. So here is a former director over at the SEC, director of the Division of Corporation Finance, and this is his famous June 2018 remarks, in which he talks about Bitcoin, he talks about crypto, and he talks about Ethereum, and he maintains that William Hinman maintained at this point in the speech that Ethereum was also a commodity. It was not a security, it was a commodity, just like Bitcoin. Here's the language that Mr. Hinman uses when talking about Ethereum. Quote, and putting aside the fundraising that accompanied the creation of Ether, and I have a bunch of question marks here because how can you put aside, this is one of the whole points of the Howey test. You can't lay this aside. We're going to see in a moment from now that Mr. Hinman appears to be a very corrupt individual, and there's a reason he's willing to set aside something as major as this. But to let him continue his quote, putting aside the fundraising that accompanied the creation of Ether, based on my understanding of the present state of Ether, the Ethereum network and its decentralized structure, current offers and sales of Ether are not securities transactions. Again, this is not me speaking. This is Mr. Hinman speaking back in June of 2018, and a lot of people use his comments to maintain that the SEC does not have jurisdiction over Ethereum, and that Ethereum is a commodity like Bitcoin, or a digital commodity. It's come out since then, and this is one way. This is something Chairman Gensler could use to show why they made a bad decision and to walk back the SEC guidance on Ethereum. The same guy, Mr. Hinman, made millions from a pro-Ethereum firm during his tenure while he was at the SEC. So that he was clearly working for Vitalik and his groupies and being paid millions of dollars for this. So this is the only reason that the SEC ever considered Ethereum to be a commodity, because of this very corrupt, in my opinion, this very corrupt individual who classified Ethereum as a commodity when it clearly is not a commodity. I like this meme from Twitter talking about Ethereum trying to identify as a commodity, had a 70% pre-mine, this large pre-mine and pre-sale. They forked it after the DAO hack to try to claw back some money. They basically rolled back the chain. Now they're merging to proof of stake. I identify as a commodity. There's so many things to go after with Ethereum. There's so many reasons that it comes under, or should come under, SEC jurisdiction. Now, I'm sure some of you people who are watching this at this point or earlier in this video, while you're watching this, have been saying, man, if you're such a libertarian, why are you taking the side of the SEC? Well, here's why. I think that the enemy of my enemy is my friend. The SEC is an enemy of all these altcoins, and I'm willing to use them temporarily and opportunistically. I've watched Vitalik and others try to throw Bitcoin under the bus by spreading environmental and energy FUD, creating meme attack vectors like Bitcoin Maxi. So the next time an Ethereum tells you that we're all in this together, we're not all in this together. This is a war of currencies, and unfortunately Ethereum, unfortunately for them, is not a currency. It's an unregistered security that should be regulated by the SEC. And I'll say, Vitalik, I hope that you and Joe Lubin go to jail for breaking security laws because of what you've done. I would like to see you guys put in a cell. You and your projects, Ethereum is it's a giant distraction. You guys have been actively hindering the Bitcoin revolution, and you and all of the Ethereum insiders are traitors, in my opinion. Again, these are just my opinions, and what do I know? You've gotten rich, Joe Lubin and Vitalik and all the other insiders. You've only gotten rich by pumping unregistered securities like ETH and bribing government officials like William Hinman, in my opinion. And again, that's just my opinion, so please don't sue me. Here's the thing about these altcoins, these unregistered securities. They're not only stupid, but they're immoral. They are delaying the coming of the Bitcoin standard. They're delaying the freedom and the prosperity that will come with the Bitcoin standard. And these altcoins, these unregistered securities, are possibly even preventing a Bitcoin standard from coming by causing all of these problems, all this controversy, all these distractions. And so if the CBDC digital prison comes before we're ready, I directly blame all of these altcoin projects, especially Ethereum. Now, we all know that the SEC is stupid and incompetent. In fairness to them, they don't have that many people working for them, and I'm not suggesting they should be expanded, but they don't have. There's so much fraud in the crypto space. They really don't have the manpower to take care of all of it. And there are rumors they might even lose their lawsuit against Ripple, which would be a terrible thing because Ripple is one of the most blatant, stupid scams out there. The other thing about the SEC, I have to say, they've approved many dangerous ETFs, triple leveraged ETFs, inverse ETFs that really shouldn't be available to the common retail investor, and yet they won't approve a Bitcoin spot ETF. So we have this weird thing going on, and I'm not sure why Gensler, who otherwise appears to be quite pro-Bitcoin, is delaying this. Again, he's part of the fiat establishment. I don't expect him to help us out too much, but I would say that approving all these other dangerous ETFs and not approving a Bitcoin spot ETF, instead approving a Bitcoin futures ETF, which is a terrible product because it decays over time, that this just doesn't make any sense. So I'm not saying that the SEC is smart. I'm not saying they're competent. That being said, I'm fine with the SEC going after things like Ethereum. Again, someone at this point might say, what about the free market, man, and letting currencies compete and all this libertarian stuff? Well, I would say that this actually is the free market. The free market includes government attacks. Can your coin survive a nation state level attack? If not, then who cares if it gets shut down by the US government or regulated out of existence as a security? Because if it can't survive a nation state level attack, it does not live up to the cypherpunk ideals, so Satoshi's original vision for Bitcoin and for this space. And so this is the free market. If your coin cannot survive a nation state level attack, and I do believe Bitcoin will be able and has been able to survive these kind of attacks, but if your coin cannot, it deserves to be shut down. And there's no great loss there, because if it can be flipped off, turned off so easily, and sued out of existence, there's no point having it. And it deserves to be, because it's so pathetic and weak as Ethereum is. If you found this video helpful, be sure to hit that subscribe and like button. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I publish my next video. And let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.